My parents signed me up for classical guitar lessons, which made for 2 years of the most depressing Wednesday evenings. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to For the Classical Guitarist, where I make videos for the classical guitarist. In this video, we're looking at quotes about classical guitar by non-classical guitarists. Let's go ahead and let's get started. So the first one comes from the great electric guitar player Steve Vai. Steve Vai, if you guys are a fan of electric guitar at all, you probably have heard his name before. He's probably one of the original guys who could really shred, I guess, as they would say it. He played with Polyphia, if you guys saw my video about Tim Henson and playing God. And yes, for you classical guitar players out there, you probably know him as the guy who did a solo over La Catedral by Agustin Barrios with Sharon Nisbet. Here's what he had to say about classical guitar. The classical guitar has a dynamic to it, unlike regular acoustic or an electric guitar. You know there's times when you should play and there's times when you gotta hold back. It's an extremely dynamic instrument. Honestly, coming from somebody like Steve Vai, who is not only a great guitarist, but as well as a great musician, at least in my opinion, this is saying a whole lot about how much respect he has for the classical guitar. This next one comes from the actor Oscar Isaac, who I actually never really heard of. I'm sure I saw him in things before. I'm just not great at keeping up who is playing who. But apparently he was a musician as well as an actor. And because of this, in several of the roles he portrayed, he actually played a role as a musician in a movie or TV show that he was in. When asked about his guitar playing background, because like I said, he was clearly a musician and an actor, not just an actor, he said, "I wanted to shred, so I learned classical guitar." I think for many people who play a lot of like metal or progressive metal kind of music, this statement holds true because I think to many people, classical guitar is the original shred. I mean, look at music by Beethoven or Barrios or Villalobos. Some of them are very, very heavy metal sounding at least. And it really gives you the chops because you have nothing to hide behind. It's the ultimate test of how clean can you really play. Honestly, I just think it's great that somebody who is not a classical guitar player is speaking so highly of it and showing that there really is such a technical development that you get from playing classical guitar. Jimmy Page has been one of the biggest names in the guitar world for a long, long time, and honestly is still pretty relevant today even. If you by chance don't know who this is by name, you definitely know who this is by the music they've been involved in, because Jimmy Page was the guitar player of the band Led Zeppelin. In other words, the band that wrote Stairway to Heaven. The gut-strung guitar, the classical guitar, that is a whole different world on its own. Now, some of you Jimmy Page fans out there might not even know this, but Jimmy Page was actually a session musician before he made it big with Led Zeppelin and even the Yardbirds. Because of this, he was playing tons of music and tons of kinds of guitars. And even he says that the classical guitar is totally a world on its own. I think many people make the mistake that classical guitar and electric guitar are the same thing just because they're tuned the same, have 6 strings, they have the same sheet music ability to read, I guess. But to many, they are two totally separate instruments, and Jimmy Page agrees with that statement, it looks like. I love classical music, but I hated classical guitar. But I like flamenco because there was something else going on. It wasn't just notes being thrown at you. And there were certain kinds of jazz that I really liked, and other kinds that just went over my head. I'm curious if you guys can guess who this was. So take a second, pause the video, and think, and I'll tell you right now. So the person who said that quote was the guitar player Joe Satriani. Joe Satriani is another big name in the electric guitar world, especially in that instrumental guitar thing. But hearing him say this about classical guitar is a little disappointing because he's such a great musician, and to know he kind of just shut it out because he didn't like it seems unfortunate, I would say. It's really cool that he liked classical music, but as a guitar player, you would think that would make him get into classical guitar. So one thing I'm really wondering, maybe somebody knows, is why did he not like classical guitar if he likes guitar and he likes classical music? It seems like the two should mix at some point. So this next one is the complete opposite of the one I just talked about. It's a nice follow-up, I guess, because it does put it into the perspective that maybe I would hope many people would follow. This one is by the guitarist Trevor Rabin, who is one of the guitar players of the band Yes. Anyway, here's a quote that he said about classical guitar. I just loved classical music, but I also loved playing rock guitar. And I loved playing piano, so it was a natural thing that those things would merge at some point. He was talking about here his appreciation and connection to the classical guitar, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense. If you like classical music, if you like playing a classical based instrument, and you love guitar, classical guitar, in my opinion, is the perfect hybrid of all the things that you like. My parents signed me up for classical guitar lessons, which made for 2 years of the most depressing Wednesday evenings. You guys are never going to guess who said this because it's not even a guitar player or a musician, it's by the actor Andrew Garfield. Now, Andrew Garfield is a pretty well-known actor. I'm sure many of you have seen movies he's been in, but very, very odd statement. I can see where he's coming from. Personally, I don't have much to say about this, but Andrew being somebody who probably had one of those more old school European influenced teachers who was probably very much like, you gotta do it my way or that's it. I can see it being a thing that would maybe make somebody not like classical guitar. And that's something I hope that teachers today are changing. I know it's something that I'm doing, hopefully doing a little bit of that through YouTube as well. But I'm sorry that it did not work out for you, Andrew. So this next person on the list is somebody who I also didn't know a whole lot about, but their name is Roger McGuinn. Doing a quick Wikipedia search again, I was able to find that he is a singer, guitar player, frontman of one of the well-known bands called The Byrds, and was even inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame himself for his work with that band. But he had a really interesting quote about what the guitar is and how it got to where it was. Andre Segovia literally created the genre of classical guitar, which hadn't existed before around 1910. There was flamenco, which he borrowed from, but he actually arranged the works of Mozart and other classical composers for the guitar, something that had never been done before. Segovia's style is not slick or contrived, but it's still very clean and his timing is impeccable. It's got a feeling of casual elegance, as if he's just sitting around the house in Spain with a jug of wine, just playing from the heart. I don't care that there's some things that are wrong with it. It's just so cool that you have some kind of respect for the classical guitar. Now, let's talk about some things that maybe are incorrect with this quote. So, yes, Andre Segovia was an amazing guitar player, and he really did elevate the classical guitar to where it is today. Without him, we probably would not be popularized as much as we are, if not at all. But he wasn't really the first one to do it. There was guitar players before him that were his influence, people such as Francisco Tárrega, Fernando Sor, Matteo Carcassi, and Ferdinando Carulli, just to name a few. Now, with that being said, yes, Segovia did do all the things he said. He took pieces by other well-known composers. He got more works commissioned by the guitar by non-guitar composers. He did a lot of stuff. So in that sense, Roger was not wrong. But on another sense, no, Segovia was not the first person to do it, but still a really, really great quote. This quote is an interesting one because it's one that I feel that many classical guitar players have felt at one point in their life, if not indefinitely for their life. There was a period when I'd just come out of college where I'd been playing classical guitar and I suddenly realized that it wasn't what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. This quote, before I go on, was by the famous guitarist of the band The Police, Andy Summers. Now, for you classical guitar guys out there, yes, this is the same Andy Summers who recorded with Manuel Barrueco on his Nylon Steel album, and I think it's just great that he was able to come to this realization and be able to become the kind of person that he is today. And honestly, for all we know, if he stuck with the classical guitar, maybe he would have ended up quitting music altogether and we would have never gotten such gems by The Police. I don't know. Alright, finally, here's the last quote. This one is actually by the drummer of the Beatles, which, thinking on it now, it seems kind of odd, but whatever. The quote says this: "He is the daddy of us all." When Ringo was talking about this, he is talking, of course, about Segovia and guitar players. And in a way, yes, he is the dad of all classical guitar players in a way. Every classical guitar player out there traces back to Segovia. Whether it was your teacher's teacher, or your teacher's teacher's teacher, or your teacher's 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 teacher, I don't know. But either way, yes, we somehow all trace back to Segovia one way or another, at least in my opinion. But here's what Segovia had to say back after hearing Ringo Starr say this about him. "Why, they're not even my illegitimate children. They play the electric guitar." So, like I said earlier, yes, I do think that the classical guitar and the electric guitar are two totally different instruments, and it looks like Segovia also agrees. He seems to agree a little bit more negatively, I want to say, but he agrees nonetheless. Alright, that's all for this video. I hope you guys found it interesting. I definitely had a lot of fun coming along these quotes and trying to compile them all together. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, or if there's a quote that you want to share that I didn't talk about here, let me know. Anyway, stay tuned for more videos, subscribe, like the video, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.